Death smelled of withered roses and copper, and tonight Sirius Ashtar could smell it on his brother. The blade bit into his palm, deep, deeper than he'd meant, but the ritual demanded quantity, and necromancy didn't negotiate. Blood welled up hot and dark, dripping into the silver chalice with soft, wet sounds that echoed off crypt stone. His hand trembled. Not from pain. 15 years of necromancy had taught him to work through worse, but from what came next. Around him, 12 black candles burned in a perfect circle, their flames already shifted from yellow to deep, blood red. The air in the family crypt tasted of tallow and death and desperation. 3 floors above, in a bedroom that smelled of sickness and failing hope, Tyrone was dying. 27 heartbeats per minute when Sirius had checked an hour ago. Maybe 26 now. By dawn, there would be nothing left to count. Sirius positioned himself in the center of the pentagram, his own blood, drawn in careful lines across ancient stone. The forbidden tome lay open at his feet, yellowed parchment crackling in the unnatural heat. One name stared up at him, written in his great-great-grandfather's cramped, desperate script. Malachai. Below it, underlined 3 times, "The price is always higher than it seems." Sirius thought of Tyrone's blue lips, the terrible stillness between breaths that came further and further apart. 5 days of watching his brother slip away. 5 days of physicians throwing up their hands, herbalists shaking their heads, his own necromancy revealing only that something ancient and malevolent had wrapped itself around Tyrone's heart like strangling vines. A curse or a pact. Either way, it wouldn't break. So Sirius had come down to the forbidden 3rd level, to the texts his father had sealed away with protective runes and desperate warnings about prices no Ashtar should pay. His father was dead. His warnings hadn't saved him from the Conclave's executioner 15 years ago, and those same warnings wouldn't save Tyrone now. The words of the summoning tore at Sirius's throat, syllables of the infernal tongue that made his jaw crack with effort, sounds human mouths weren't designed to produce. He'd practiced for an hour until he could wrap his voice around the devil's language without breaking. Now, standing in a circle of his own blood with a demon's name burning on his tongue, Sirius poured 15 years of necromantic training, 5 days of watching his brother die, and 15 years of survivor's guilt into a single word: Malachai. The word hit the air like a physical blow. It reverberated through the crypt, bouncing off stone walls, growing louder instead of fading. The runes he'd drawn on the floor erupted in light, not the cold silver of necromancy, but blazing gold and crimson. The pentagram became lines of actual fire, burning without fuel, without heat. Then the heat came. The air trembled first, a vibration Sirius felt in his bones before he heard it, subsonic rumble that made his teeth ache and his pulse skip. The temperature in the crypt, which had been corpse cold for centuries, began to shift, not warming, attacking. The candles roared higher. Their flames stretched toward the vaulted ceiling, no longer red but gold, then white-hot, bright enough to make his eyes water. Heat slammed into the space like a living thing, driving back the ancient cold. Stone beneath Sirius's feet went from frozen to warm, to burning in seconds. Sweat broke out on his forehead, ran down his spine, soaked into his shirt. The air itself thickened, becoming hard to breathe, charged with potential energy like the moment before lightning strikes. In the center of the circle, the air ripped open. Flame exploded upward in a pillar that reached the ceiling, roaring like a living thing. The chalice fell from Sirius's hands, blood spilling across stone, evaporating instantly with a hiss. He staggered back toward the edge of his protective circle, throwing up his arm to shield his face from the inferno. The flames howled, and within them something moved. Sirius had spent 15 years as a necromancer. He understood death. He could raise corpses, could feel the exact moment life left a body, could trace the boundary between living and dead with surgical precision. This was the opposite. This was creation. Fire turning into flesh, heat becoming solid, nothing creating something out of pure violation of how reality was supposed to work. Watching it made every instinct in his necromancer's soul scream that this was wrong. But he couldn't look away. The flames began to condense at the extremities first. Hands formed, bronze-colored, long-fingered, too perfect to be mortal. Then arms, corded with muscle, covered in marks that weren't tattoos but living flame drawn directly into skin. The patterns shifted constantly, never settling, hurting to look at the way staring at the sun hurt. A torso followed, broad, bare, every muscle defined with anatomical precision that was just slightly too perfect to be human, the kind of flawlessness that came from studying bodies long enough to recreate them without flaw. The face came last. Sharp cheekbones that could have been carved from marble. Full lips curved in something between amusement and threat. Black hair with crimson streaks that moved like flames even after solidifying, defying gravity, stirring in wind that didn't exist. And the eyes. Amber, vertical pupils, glowing with their own internal light. They opened fully and fixed on Sirius with predatory awareness that said, "I know exactly what you are. I know exactly what you're worth. And I'm deciding right now whether you're food or entertainment." The demon stood 7 feet tall in the center of dying flames, naked for a moment. Bronze skin, perfect proportions, completely unbothered by either nudity or the human staring at him. Then clothing materialized. Black trousers that fit like they'd been painted on. A long cloak the color of old blood draped over one shoulder, leaving the tattooed chest bare. Malachai opened his mouth and spoke. "Necromancer." The voice resonated in frequencies human vocal cords couldn't produce, deep enough to vibrate in Sirius's chest cavity, high enough to make his teeth ache. The single word rolled out like judgment. How? Those lips curved, revealing teeth too white, too sharp. Predictable. Malachai took a step forward, then another, walking straight through the pentagram as if it were chalk on wet pavement. The world stopped. Sirius's mind went blank with a single, crystal-clear thought. I'm going to die. The protective circle, centuries-old binding magic, Ashtar blood mixed with necromantic power, the one thing that was supposed to contain a demon, the single barrier between him and whatever horrors, creatures from hell inflicted on mortals stupid enough to summon them, did nothing. Might as well have not existed. Every necromancer learned the rules before they learned to raise their first corpse. Stay inside the circle. Keep the demon outside. Never, never let it cross the barrier, because that barrier was the only thing keeping you from becoming the next corpse on the dissection table. Sirius's father had drilled it into him. The circle is everything. Without it, you have no leverage, no protection, no power. You're just meat. The pentagram might as well have been drawn in dust. Panic flooded Sirius's veins, cold and sharp and absolute. His heart hammered against his ribs. Every instinct screamed, "Run! Get out! Get up the stairs! Seal the crypt! Run until—" No! Running meant prey. Prey meant death. And more than that, Tyrone was upstairs dying. And if Sirius ran now, if he failed now, his brother would be dead by morning, and this would all have been for nothing. So Sirius forced himself to stand his ground as the demon circled him slowly, deliberately, a predator with all the time in the world, because its prey had nowhere to go. Heat washed off bronze skin, not the warmth of a living body, but something older, hotter, like standing too close to a furnace. The smell hit him, cinnamon and smoke and something else. Something that smelled like burnt offerings, like temples destroyed, like prayers answered with fire. Sirius's throat was dry, his pulse thundered in his ears. But he met those amber eyes and forced his voice steady. "I summoned you." The words came out level, a miracle. "I demand audience." The words felt like throwing pebbles at an avalanche. "Demand." Malachai stopped directly in front of him, close enough that Sirius could see the flames moving beneath bronze skin, could feel supernatural heat radiating like waves. Interesting word. Those amber eyes dragged over Sirius like hands, cataloging, evaluating, pricing. Most mortals beg when I manifest. They scream. They try to bind me first and negotiate later. A long-fingered hand reached out. Warm fingers caught Sirius's chin, gentle, terrifying, tilting his face up. But you— The demon's thumb brushed across his cheekbone. Casual, possessive, the way someone might touch a thing they were considering buying. "You're different." Those eyes bored into him, seeing through flesh and bone to the trembling soul beneath. Ashtar blood. Malachai's lips curved. Necromancer trained. 15 years working with death, yes. You understand corpses, decay, the boundary between living and dead. He leaned closer, and Sirius couldn't breathe. But you've never worked with life. Never created. Only destroyed. And now, here you stand, desperate enough to summon what you cannot control. "You can save him," Sirius said. "Not a question. Him." The demon's smile sharpened. "Your brother, Tyrone, 20 years old, cursed, no, not cursed, a pact." Those amber eyes gleamed with knowledge that made Sirius's stomach drop. "Someone in your family made a very stupid bargain with something old and hungry, and now your brother is paying the price. Break it." "I could." Malachai released his chin, but didn't step back. "The question isn't whether I can, Necromancer. The question is what you'll give me in return." Sirius thought of Tyrone's face. Too pale, too still, already looking like the bodies in this crypt. "Name your price." "Any price." The demon's expression shifted into something almost fond, the way a teacher might look at a student who just made an interesting mistake. Dangerous words from a desperate man. "I know the risks." "Do you?" Malachai reached out again, and this time Sirius couldn't stop the flinch when those warm fingers pressed against his temple. "Let me see. Let me see what you're really worth, what you'll really give." The touch burned, not physically, but something deeper, like fingers pushing through his skull to rifle through memories, through emotions, through every private thought and hidden fear. Sirius gasped, tried to pull back, but the demon's other hand caught the back of his neck, holding him still. "Stop!" "Shh." The sound was almost gentle. "I need to know what I'm bargaining with. You want your brother saved? Then let me see what that's worth to you." Images flashed through Sirius's mind, not his own memories surfacing naturally, but pulled up by force, examined, evaluated. Tyrone, at 10 years old, sobbing in Sirius's arms the night their parents were executed. "Don't leave me. Don't leave me alone." "I won't. I'll always protect you. Always." Tyrone, at 15, laughing at something Sirius couldn't remember now. Happy. Alive. Tyrone, at 20, graduating from the academy. Pride and hope bright in his eyes. Tyrone, 5 days ago, collapsing in the middle of dinner. The way his face had gone gray. The sound he'd made, not quite a scream, not quite a gasp, but something in between that Sirius would hear in his nightmares forever. The demon pulled back, releasing him. Sirius staggered, would have fallen if he hadn't caught himself against a stone sarcophagus. His vision swam. His mind felt violated, raw, like Malachai had taken his skull and turned it inside out. "Interesting," the demon murmured. "Very interesting. You love him. Not just familial obligation, genuine love. You would die for him, would kill for him, would sacrifice." Those amber eyes gleamed. Anything for him. Yes. Sirius pushed himself upright, forcing his voice steady despite the way his hands shook. Anything. Name your price. Malachai was silent for a long moment, studying him with that predatory intelligence that saw too much, understood too much. Then he smiled. 7 months, the demon said. I save your brother, break the pact, heal whatever damage it's done, ensure he lives a full and healthy life. In exchange, you give me 7 months of your existence. Sirius's breath caught. You want me to serve you for 7 months? No. The smile turned sharp. I want you to give me 7 months of your life, of your essence, your experiences, your memories, your emotions. I'll take 7 months, from you, not from your lifespan, and you'll continue existing without it. You'll remember that the months happened, remember what you did and said. But you won't remember how it felt, won't have the emotional connection to those memories. That's, Sirius tried to process it. You want to steal my feelings? 7 months' worth. Malachai circled him again, slower now, considering. 7 months of joy, sorrow, love, fear, satisfaction, rage, all of it. Extracted, consumed. And you'll continue your life with a blank space where those emotions used to be. Will it affect my ability to function? That depends on what happens during the 7 months. If nothing significant occurs, if it's a quiet period of research and routine, you'll barely notice the loss. But if you experience something profound during those 7 months, the demon's smile was cruel. Well, you'll remember it happened. You just won't remember why it mattered. Sirius thought of Tyrone dying, thought of holding his little brother's body and knowing he could have saved him, but was too afraid to pay the price. How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't. Malachai stopped in front of him again. But demons don't lie, Necromancer. We can't. It's one of the few rules that actually binds us. We can mislead, we can omit, we can let you draw the wrong conclusions, but we cannot speak direct falsehoods. He extended one bronze hand. So, when I tell you that I will save your brother's life in exchange for 7 months of your emotional existence, you can trust that I mean exactly what I say. And nothing else. No hidden clauses, no additional prices. None. 7 months, that's all. It should have felt like too good a deal, should have made Sirius suspicious. But he was out of time and out of options, and Tyrone was dying, and, for one moment, a thought surfaced unbidden. What will I become after 7 months of this? What kind of person walks away from a demon's table and goes on living? He pushed it down. There would be time for regret later, or there wouldn't. Either way. Fine. Sirius reached out and clasped the demon's hand. 7 months. Save my brother. Done. The word resonated through the crypt like a bell tolling. Power surged through their joined hands, not painful, but overwhelming, like touching lightning, like holding fire. Sirius gasped as magic wrapped around him, golden threads weaving through his essence, marking him, claiming him. The 7 months begin now, Malachai said. His grip tightened. And I'm starting with the most significant emotion you're currently feeling. What? The relief. The demon's smile was gentle, terrible. The desperate, overwhelming relief that you've saved him, that you've succeeded, that your brother will live. Horror flooded through Sirius. No, wait. But the feeling was already draining away. That bright, fierce joy of success, the knowledge that Tyrone would survive, that the gamble had paid off, that everything would be okay, disappeared like water through cupped hands. One moment it was there, the next gone. Sirius staggered back, the absence hitting him like a physical blow. He knew intellectually that he'd just saved Tyrone's life, knew he should feel triumph, satisfaction, relief. But there was nothing, just hollow awareness that something important had happened, and he couldn't feel anything about it. "You bastard," he whispered. "I told you," Malachai said, still smiling. "The price is always higher than it seems." The demon's form began to shimmer, flames flickering back to life around bronze skin. "That," Malachai said, gesturing to the fading golden light of extracted relief, "was just the down payment, immediate compensation for services rendered. The real price begins later." He took a step back, fire already consuming his form. The 7 months begin in 3 days, 7 rituals over 7 lunar cycles. Each one will take a piece of what you are, emotion, memory, essence. By the end, you'll have given me exactly 7 months of your existence. His smile turned sharp. 3 days, Sirius Ashtar. The first ritual, fear, comes in 3 days. Be ready. Fire roared upward. Heat blasted through the crypt one final time. Malachai vanished. Silence. The smell of cinnamon and smoke fading into nothing. Sirius stood alone in the crypt, surrounded by dead ancestors and dying candles. Upstairs, Tyrone's heart would be beating steady and strong again. The curse would be broken. His brother would live. He knew this. But where relief should have bloomed, nothing. Just hollow awareness that the task was complete. He looked down at his bleeding hand, at the broken pentagram, at the emptiness where a demon had stood. 7 months, he thought. I can survive 7 months. He was wrong, but he wouldn't understand how wrong until it was far, far too late.